Happy New Year, David.
Happy New Year.
Oh, don't say it very enthusiastic.
It's cold.
It is cold, actually.
Yeah, it is cold. Brain's catching up now, though, slowly. What are we, second day now?
Second day. And for you watching this, it is bitterly cold. My 18-year-old son went sliding down our office street. And it's times like this when you don't want to be in the UK.
Do you know, was it you that was saying to me yesterday, we're getting to that stage now where you're scared you'll fall over when you're just walking down the street. And that happened to me. I stood outside my front door the other day with the bins and confidently, because I've never had this issue for a long time, stood outside, stood on the patio, slipped, landed straight on my back. The bag of food waste went everywhere and I did my shoulder in for the next couple of weeks. And now I walk like I'm on the moon. I'm taking very slow steps everywhere I go.
There's a point when you get a certain age and you don't say I fell over on ice. You say I had a fall.
Yeah.
I was like, I had a fall. I worry about like, what happens if I fall over and like break my wrist or something like that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Paranoid.
The shower one for me, you know, getting in and out the bath.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, I have to check now, see if that's slippery or not.
It's, you know what I blame it on? Final Destination series, the movies.
Yeah.
They literally have programmed me to think like, oh, I'm driving behind a logging truck. I know what's going to happen.
Yeah. And now if you just have a general thought about a plane crashing, you think it's a premonition, so you start to panic. It's weird because this changed for me so dramatically. I think it was when I had kids. I stopped going from thinking I was invincible to suddenly everything could get me. And that dramatic shift was quite a scary awakening. But you've got to try and find that balance of not everything's dangerous, but not everything is you're fine as well. So jumping off cliffs is not something I do anymore, but it was something I would do when I was a kid. It's crazy.
Yeah, I can remember, like, it must have been about 7 or 8 years ago, like, when you first properly started, you had, like, injuries from football and you kept playing, even though people said you should not do that. And you ended up in hospital, for operations twice.
Yeah, my hospital list for bones breaking is scarily long. I managed to catch a glimpse at it when I was in, because since I've been working here, I think I tore my ACL, so I had screws on my knee, 2 operations. I broke my heel. Do you remember that? I split my heel in half. So I've had, and that's just in the last few years.
This is nothing to do with me though, and nothing to do with working here. No, it's just since you've worked here, not because you worked here.
This LinkedIn training business, it gets you, it's really intensive on the body, you know.
But it's kind of interesting, this whole thing about like the obsession with like falling over, because I was talking about something the other day and I'd love your opinion on this. You know, when you know about something, when you're too aware of something, it actually makes you unable to kind of make decisions. Like when you were aware of the dangers, you kind of like avoid it, like the ice, right? Oh, I could fall over here, I could break my leg, or, you know, hit my head and I'm gone kind of thing. As soon as you start to become aware of those things, you start to be more cautious. And weird transition here. I reckon that's probably the number one reason a lot of people end up holding themselves back on kind of LinkedIn and online, is because they have heard the horror stories, because they've seen a lot of stuff and because they don't want to shred their reputation, that kind of fear creeps in and they end up avoiding doing things that would actually make them better.
Yeah, I think this works across I just as you're saying that, I can see multiple areas where this exists to me. It's like the news, right? If you watch the news, you think the world is a horrific place, but you're not seeing all the good things that happen, you're not seeing that how many people per group that happens with, right? So if you see a plane crash or 4 plane crashes in a week, you didn't realize that there was 4 million planes flying. So you're not looking at the odds, you're not looking at things like that. So being exposed to the problem like that makes you more aware, but in a negative way. Likewise, social media, what has that created? Well, it makes everyone think that they're being watched, everyone's being listened to, everyone's getting, you're going to get engagement, negative comments, you're going to get haters and all this sort of stuff, when most of the time, for most people, if you post on social media, it's rarely seen, rarely remembered. right? So these people are, I can't tell you how many times people have said to me, but what if I post and they don't like it? Or what if no one sees it? And I'm like, why do you care so much? But it feels like we have this, we feel like we shouldn't take part unless it's successful all the time. They don't realize that there's a journey to see success.
I had somebody unfollow me on LinkedIn the other day, and she kicked up a stink on my comments because I asked people to comment a word and I'd send them a free resource. And she disagreed with this premise. And it was like, yeah, but it works. And you know, I'm all for, I'm for doing what works and not overthinking it. And I think sometimes when we're so deep in our subject, we kind of like, because we know what we do so much, it makes us like, sorry, I'm gonna have to say this in the way. You see 22-year-old, I know you're 30, you're in the 30 club, so I can say it, right? You see these 22-year-old kids on there, and they talk, absolute bollocks, some of them. Here's how I built my business to 25K a month, and they're still not making 25K a month. It's just marketing shizzle they're throwing out. But they'll get people to sink a couple of grand into them because they make these wild claims and say ridiculous things that me and you doing this for a long time would go, yeah, I'm not going to say those things because it's silly. And I'm not, sometimes we are far more cautious because we know our topic really well. And I think I meet a lot of people where, because they've got years and years of experience, they kind of really overthink it.
Yeah, I'd actually argue that the ones who are most successful are not the ones who know their craft the best, are the ones that know how to, like, for example, social media. It's not the ones who have the most expertise. It's the ones who know how to market it, right? Or know how social media works. If you understand people, you understand social media, you don't need to know anything about the product you're selling. As long as you know those things, you can convince people to buy something.
Well, we've got a really good example of that from our history, haven't we? We had a member of our team years and years, we're talking a long, long time ago, who was the most exceptional salesperson. Well, I'm not sure whether they were or they weren't. They could sell a lot of stuff, but they had no clue really what they were selling.
Yeah, and this is, I think your expertise can get in the way, can't it? Because you try to sell in a way that's so perfect that you over-explain what you do. You overindulge on the detail and the methodology that you forget the reason that they want to buy in the first place. The good thing with what salespeople do is they're quite the opposite. They only care about why someone would buy, that they don't even think about the methodology of the product because they know that's not what people are interested in.
And basically, you know, in some scenarios, I'm not recommending do this, but in some scenarios, people will literally go, I don't need to know whether this product's any good. Don't need to know whether this service is any good. As long as I understand why the person buys and what's driving them, I can sell, what did they say, sand to Arabs or whatever it is, or ice to Eskimos. Yeah. And that might be ethically questionable, but you have the other extreme then of the people who go, well, hang on a minute, I don't want to be that. So they go completely the opposite other way. And I'm going to overload you with information, over-explain everything, not really talk about problems and outcomes, and try and help you make a fully logical decision. It's like one side is I'm going to leverage your emotions to sell, and the other one is I'm going to try and do logic. And actually the reality is somewhere in the middle. And I think sometimes people who've got a lot of knowledge just end up like messing it up because they overthink it.
Do you think it's just a natural belief that say a consultant has, that because they're so clued up on what they do, they just are naive to the fact they think other people will respect that and see that as value?
Do you know what? I had a little bit of a mini revelation. I'd never thought about this before, about this whole, when you've got somebody with a lot of subject matter knowledge, consultant, accountant, anybody with a lot of subject matter knowledge, and they're selling themselves, one of the things that they've usually come out of working for another firm or another company or a big corporate, one of the things that they fail to appreciate is that somebody else has built the brand that they've been able to benefit from. So like if you're a consultant from a big global consulting firm and you're working in that global consulting firm, there's a marketing team that's established your brand name. There's a marketing team that has established kind of a perception in somebody's mind of this is what you do. When you come out of that world, you don't realize how much that matters. And so if you look at, say, I've got friends who work at PwC, but when you put PwC and you go to LinkedIn and you got a banner with PwC and they're transforming the world or whatever statement, like we all know what PwC does, or we have a hint of what PwC does. If you try and do that as a solopreneur where people don't know what you do, they just go, I have no idea what you do. Because the brand recognition, the brand knowledge just isn't there. And, you know, a consultant might go, I don't have a brand. I'm not into that stuff. We all have a brand in some way, shape or form. It's what an opinion people form. So I think the biggest thing is these consultants and coaches, and they come out of working for a big organization and they fail to appreciate, they try to replicate PwC without PwC's brand power.
Yeah.
And so they try and model that and it doesn't work.
Yeah, and obviously, if you're in the industry long enough, you build up contacts, you build up relationships that you've developed that have been earned through the marketing, but you've developed through your expertise, and you naturally rely on them for a while. But at some point, that starts to slow down, and you start to think that was always going to remain. And success breeds success in a way. It does. The more clients you win, the more you win again. But at some point, when you're fully reliant on a referral system, that starts to slow down. And then you realize that actually people aren't coming to you just for your expertise anymore, especially when it's competitive. What do you do then?
Oh, well, I was talking to somebody who they are basically 10 years from retirement. They did exactly that. They came out of corporate 5-6 years ago, 10 years away from retirement. And they'd basically ridden on their network. And they said the problem is, a lot of their network is now starting to retire. And so that referral base is slowing and slimming down. And it's like, you don't want to be 10 years away from retirement going, I have to do all this again. But that's exactly what happens with a lot of people. They come out, first few years, some people have gone on for a long, long time on referrals. But if you're not establishing, I mean, you don't need to build a PwC global brand and be world famous. But if your target market is, let's say your total addressable market is like 20,000, whatever. You don't need all of them to know you, but you need enough of them to know you at a level that will give you like predictable pipeline. And if you don't want a hard sell, you have to go on the front foot and go, how am I going to get, I don't know, an ecosystem of, say, 1,000 people really deeply trust me? What's my plan to do that? If you're not doing that, or if you try and do that, you've seen it, right? People come in going, we won't take them on as clients, but they come and say, can we have 1,000 leads? I need 20 leads by next month. It's like, we're not doing that, right? We're not going to put ourselves in that position of rescuing somebody. They should be proactive and think, okay, I'm going to need 20 leads a month. Let me do some things day by day, little things day by day that all kind of compound rather than this surge. But often people go to that surge of crazy activity because they meet, there's a cliff coming.
Yeah, and we find a lot that these sorts of people have been reliant on referrals for so long, they suddenly come into this position where there's no predictability. And if you think about why the referrals work so well, it's the relationship, right? So as soon as you take the relationship away, they think what then will get them clients is just the fact that they've been doing this for 20 years and there's this extensive experience. But when everyone around you is saying they've got extensive experience and you're all relying on the exact same differentiator, there's no difference. Right?
Yeah. I mean, you've obviously coached a lot of people who have gone from that corporate world to running their own business, what are those common things they get wrong or they don't think about?
So there was something that you told me. I was speaking the other day about this because it was my wife, right, Abby. So she said to me, and it was funny because I was watching your live, and I think she finds it weird that I would watch your live in the morning because I spend so much time around you. And she said, "Does Dean actually come out with anything that makes you go, like, damn, that was some good information?"
And you said no.
And I said, yeah, never in 10 years. And I said, there was one thing that I think was the most transformational thing that you told me last year that helped me to help my clients better. And that was about them not focusing on what's observable to their audience. So the biggest issue, and anyone listening, the biggest bit of gold you could get here is look at the problem you're talking about. Look at the sole reason why someone would buy your coaching in the first place and how you're advertising that problem, and think to yourself, is it the thing that your target audience actually sees day to day as their problem? Not the thing you think that they see, right? Because I can sit here and say, I think that people do this on LinkedIn, but what do I know they do and see? That's the key, and that's the one piece. There's only one thing you've ever said to, no, I'm joking. That was one thing that stood out to me last year that changed the way I coach my clients, because it made me realize that there were so many of them speaking to a problem that sounds good, but is not the one that their audience sees. So in turn, they don't react to.
So give me an example of that.
So the biggest example that always sticks in my mind, I was talking to a coach who was addressing burnout, and they said, we help leaders to address burnout and recover from it, sort of thing, to thrive from a position of burnout to then thriving in their career. And I started to think about that, and I thought, in my own career or in anyone I've spoken to, I've never heard someone say, I'm facing burnout right now. They've always said, I'm overworked, I'm tired, I'm fed up, or it's affecting my relationships. But no one ever turns around and goes, do you know what? My diagnosis is I've got burnout. Actually, they talk about the symptoms to the problem. So how they feel about burnout. So we diagnose them as having burnout, but they don't self-diagnose. So saying directly in your messaging, I help you recover from burnout, you're speaking to no one, because those people do not self-admit that they have burnout. What they'll say is, instead, I turn around to my client and I said, say this. Say, we help leaders who are overworked, overtired, and stressed, for example, to turn it on its head and get that promotion, for example. And then people actually read that and go, that sounds like me. Instead of going, is that me? Do I have burnout? Probably not. So I'll walk away.
Yeah, it's a big one, isn't it? It's like, the problem is when you're not in the situation your clients are in, you see the world differently. And I was talking to a client just before Christmas, and I said, one of the things that most people say is, when you're in a problem and you've got pressure, because people don't pay to solve a problem that doesn't hurt them. So you got pressure. Pressure changes your perspective. You try to alleviate the pressure, not the cause of the pressure. And we've done this with things that we've been doing, is we treat what we see. And fundamentally, we know that's wrong. I know that's wrong, to just deal with what I see, because there's always a kind of root cause.
It never fixes the whole problem. It always just kind of tidies up the thing right in front of you.
But to market well, you have to speak to the problem they see, not the root cause that they don't know anything about.
Yeah.
So, just like a doctor would do, the doctor would say, oh, does it hurt here? Is this, can you move around? Oh, no, I can't. The doctor doesn't go, right, you got appendicitis. It's like, no, I'll diagnose you first. And then they see, oh, I understand now why this is happening. But often I see people on LinkedIn talking to root causes that nobody sees.
And I liken this to, look, you go to a chemist, you know what paracetamol is as a brand. So you ask for paracetamol. But if you've never heard of paracetamol and your business is someone no one's ever heard of, they're going to say, I've got a headache. Mm-hmm. They're not going to say, I need paracetamol. They're going to say, I've got a headache. And that whole kind of aspect of us expecting people to work with us just because, like I said, our experience, or you're right. The problem is, that people, and I understand that kind of surface level problem of talking to what people see is not the overall fix, but people get LinkedIn as a stage or social selling as a stage the wrong way around. Social selling is about getting the attention in the first place. It's not about nurturing attention that already exists. So don't get me wrong, on the call, you'll talk about the bigger picture and you'll go into more depth around the symptoms, around the big problem and the root cause. But to get their attention, and that's the bit people forget. They're like, yeah, but Dave, that's not what I fix. It's like, yeah, but you need their attention.
Yeah. I think the best way to think about it is, let's say use that headache example, but this headache's not going to go away. It's going to be there forever, right? So if somebody comes to you and goes, I've got a headache, it's splitting headache, and you've got an option. You've got an option. I'll give you paracetamol and it'll go away for a day, right? But then you can say, but if it's going to come back and it's a recurring headache, we actually need to find out why. And this is why it's happening. And then they go, oh, now I understand why it's happening. I want the other treatment that will get rid of it forever. And that's the bit that's the sales angle, but the marketing angle is you've got a headache.
Yeah.
And if you don't get that, you end up basically as an expert, and the only people who resonate with you are other people who understand what's really going on. And the reason why people need you is because they don't understand what's going on. So you're talking to people saying, I understand what's going on. And they look at it and go, yeah, that's not what's going on, because they don't understand what's going on. Yeah. So I always think about it like, if you were stressed out and like you were reacting badly to something and you were, overreacting, somebody would say to you probably, Dave, what you need to do is just like calm down a little bit, step away from everything, maybe sleep on it, and you'll have a better perspective tomorrow. That's what you would say. Or you'd tell me that if I was in a tiz about something. To market and do it really well, you have to actually get out of your perspective and step into their perspective of, what does this feel like right now? What's going on around me? And like, what shit's going down? What nightmares are going on? And actually talk to them, and people go, oh my God, it's like you understand me.
Yeah.
That's half the battle.
Yeah, I think if we diagnose why most marketing and sales fail, it's purely because we're not telling people what they want to hear. And if you think about, and look, I'm not someone who, as a salesperson, is always focused on telling people what they want. And the reason I don't is because that to me is selling to the wrong part, right? Don't get me wrong, from a sales point of view, you need to dig deeper and try and solve the overall problem. But to get their attention, to really get them to see me and notice me, I've got to start selling them what they want to see, right? And I think content is a big part of this. I see so many people branding their content and regurgitating messaging that is industry known, nothing that says anything different and speaks to a general surface level problem. No one's going really for it and putting themselves in a position to understand someone specific. And I think this is because we worry that if we target, let's say I help you get a promotion as a sales director role, that's very specific. But by doing that, if someone specific is looking to solve that problem, I'm more likely to get a client.
Conversion rate goes up.
Yeah, but instead I say, I'll help you get promotion, thinking that will get me more clients because I widen the net of how many people I can appeal to, and in turn, appeal to no one because no one specifically trusts me to get the promotion. And that's interesting because when we're doing sales teams training, often what we'll hear from them is, so what's the best messaging templates to actually get replies? And it's like, that's you trying to treat a symptom because you've sent lots of messages and got no replies. I need another type of message that will get replies. So you're trying to fix the symptom. What is the actual real problem going on? You don't understand how to take what you do and turn it into something valuable for that person. So when a sales team are going, we're sending lots of messages and getting no replies, that instantly tells me a couple of things. Probably volume. So they're doubling down on bad messaging to compensate, play a numbers game. They don't know what the value is to the audience, or it's too generic. And that's atypical. So they'll come in and say, oh, we need some new messaging templates. We need some new structures to get more replies. And actually, instinctively, it's
the salesperson or sales team do not know, how do I take what we do and show these people, whether that be in bulk or individually, why they should give me their time, why it matters to them. And it's the same problem. Treat the symptom. People will pay to treat the symptom. So they'll hire us because we want to get more replies. Mm-hmm. But actually they think maybe we're going to teach them secret messaging tactics. Actually, what we're going to do is show them how to articulate the value better so that people will reply and people will book a call.
Yeah, and I think that's actually what makes it harder to sell what we do, because what we're not offering is a quick fix. What we're offering is the kind of the large, changing the way you think completely about how you do outreach. So I'll always say this: outreach fails. Because of that, we're not saying what people want to read. And actually, there's loads of variables. People are busy. People are desensitized by a vast amount of outreach that they've received in the past 10 years. There's loads of reasons why they potentially, budgets are tighter than normal. Mm-hmm. So you've got to really stand out. So yes, it is your messaging that's the problem, but it's not just the words of your messaging. It's not like I can say this, but replace this word with your word and it'll work. There's no silver bullet. It's about understanding, like you say, understanding the value, understanding the person's role and what they individually care about. Yeah. So many variables in there. And tidying up outreach like that is just, there's not a one word answer, a quick fix, a silver bullet.
It's really true that if you said it earlier, if you understand your buyer, you can do social media. You can do any of it, all of it, outreach, the works. If you understand that, you can do it all. It's the buyer, really, because when you think about it, like, okay, if I'm going to put content, what visual will stop them scrolling? You know your buyer. What hook will get them to pay attention? What will matter to them? If you know your buyer, you can know what that is. Okay, what message, what's the number one thing they really want right now? Because that's the first thing you're going to lead with in the message, right? What is that? Say that. If you know your buyer, messaging, content, all of the whole LinkedIn piece becomes easy. Why do you think people don't know their buyer?
I think we always gravitate towards the easy problems to solve, which is people want more money, people want to save money, people don't have enough time, but no one's actually looking deep enough. I think the main reason we don't target the buyer is because like I said earlier, we're worried about going too specific, too niche. We're constantly diluting our messaging to appeal to as many people as possible, thinking that gives us more opportunity.
I think you really just hit it there. Like, diluted it.
Yeah. We spent way too much time thinking, how can I appeal to everyone? How can we create messaging that gets everyone? Because imagine if we did that.
Is it everybody, though? Because some people go, I'm not to everybody. But you and I know that they are appealing to, when they think about it in their heads and you go, who's your customer? There isn't one person in their head. There's like 5 or 3.
And some of them can be completely different. Right?
It's not a million, but there are multiple people in their heads when they're thinking about it.
Yeah, and some of the strongest fixes I've helped with companies and their sales teams is we look at, say, Amazon, and you go, well, they're a company that does, it's an online marketplace. So as a company, they're looking to increase revenue as a whole. How can they get more customers? But actually, if you target, say, I don't know, a customer experience director there or a marketing person, they have different goals to the company as a whole. And you cannot go to that marketing person and say, look, I'll help you as a company get more customers. They don't care. What they really care about is their specific thing that they're trying to achieve. And this is where our outreach fails, because we say, I'll help you find more customers. Every lead gen company is going to tell them that, or every client acquisition company. But who's telling them that we'll help your next smart ad campaign that they're doing to perform at this level, to sell or to occupy the market on Hoovers, for example, or vacuum cleaners? Someone who goes that specific and understands that marketing person's true goal is the one that will stand out and get the...
It's really true that there are, when you look at it, and I've seen this before, like, well, I'll give you a real good example of this, right? This actually happened on LinkedIn. I was talking to a marketing person and atypically we'll talk to marketing teams, sales teams, as well as leadership teams. But I was talking to a marketing leader, and we were talking about LinkedIn and where it fits. And he wanted to upskill the sales team, but at the same time, he had some concerns because marketing's targeted for the number of leads. They have a target. And he actually said this in a LinkedIn message. He said, my concern is that if I put budget to train the sales team in how to convert more leads, but also acquire more leads, I risk that the marketing team lose their bonus because we are targeted on the number of leads we generate for the sales team. So the marketing leader, whether it's ethical or not, the marketing leader decided not to train the sales team how to generate their own leads and how to prospect better, because the marketing team might lose their bonus.
And see, this is mental, right? And that's how many people would target that person and say, we can help your sales team generate leads. And like almost we did, right? But actually the agenda was, how can we, imagine if you go to that person, you say, look, as a marketing group, here's how we can help you generate more leads so that you can hit a higher quota and get a bigger bonus.
Yeah.
That person would have been like, absolutely, this is exactly what I want. And just a slight change of going, we'll help your sales team, which is what most companies would do, completely missed it. And it is true. The problem we have, right, is we cannot captivate everyone. We cannot get everyone's specific
if I'm
need.
Talking to that marketing person, right, his agenda was, how do I get more leads? And I was talking to him, and we got onto the salespeople, and he was like, I don't want that to happen. And that for me shows how individual people, the pain points of the business case, and the individual buyer's case can be the same but different.
Absolutely.
But also it showed me that some organizations' compensation structures are perverse, that you would have one department choosing not to progress the business's goals for fear of how it would impact their department. That's nuts.
Yeah, and I'm sure that'll bite them at some point. But again, it's like a commission structure. If they're performing, does the company care? Because they're getting leads, right? As long as they can convert them. Systems like that is exactly why outreach is so much harder. But it also is so much easier because what do we have now? We have so many more ways to get hold of information on companies and learn about individuals. So more people are posting content, more people are showing up on social media, more companies have a representation. If we can
more outreach.
Yeah, there's more outreach, don't get me wrong, and that makes it harder. But it's not harder if we know how to do it differently so we can stand out. And this is the thing, the number one question, how can I increase responses to outreach? And the truth, never something that they want to hear because it means more work for them, right?
Well, you look at what all of our team, since we've been teaching hyper-targeted prospecting, which is not for everybody, the volume of our outreach has gone down, but the number of calls booked has gone up. And that tells me that in a world where everybody's getting generic pitches, copy and paste, volume, play the numbers game, actually going ultra personal and more unique is the winner. I mean, JC, she's in your team, but JC's relatively new in the business, 4 or 5 months in, and she picked up hyper-targeted prospecting like as the first thing she did. She was on the leaderboard as the top person booking appointments, right?
Yes, she's got a really good appointment booking rate. And I mean, our output, she's sending 10 video messages out a day. She's ringing 40 people a day. She's really creating an output. But we know output doesn't equal necessarily success. So there's got to be a balance between holding output and introducing that quality of understanding your audience. So if we can get our sales team to a point where they're holding output and holding that understanding of who their audience is, that's how you win. A lot of companies either do one or the other. So that you'll know this, and kind of changing subject a bit, when people will say to you, so Dave, how often should I send a newsletter to my email list? And I go, well, maybe once every week or 2 weeks. And they say, oh, I've been sending 1 email a month. And you think, there's some people who really have completely lost the idea of output and choosing quality too much. And there's a lot of people who go, let's throw stuff at the wall, see what sticks, and forget about quality. If I just hit them enough times, they'll investigate me and choose to work with me.
More feels good though, doesn't it? More volume feels good.
Feels like a way to plug a hole, but actually it can waste a lot of time. And don't get me wrong, output can work. Don't get me wrong, everything has some level of success. I mean, even LinkedIn messaging has a 0.6% success rate. So you send 100 messages, you might get one. So if you send 200, you might get two.
But in the long run, that volume over value doesn't. This is where people, I think, get it wrong. I've had this conversation. I only need 1 or 2 clients, right? We hear that a lot. And I say, okay, that's fine. There is an element of we need a little bit of volume to get the 1 or 2. So people go, oh, 1 or 2 clients and I'm done. Okay, so what's your conversion rate? Let's work backwards here. So you 1 or 2 clients, so 2 sales. Okay, so you've got 2 clients. How many proposals for service did you have to do to get 2 clients? And most people don't know these numbers. But then, okay, how many calls did you actually do to get those 2 proposals? Because there'll be some calls that aren't fit, aren't right. Okay, now how many leads did you need to get those calls? And actually what it works out is that 1 to 2 might be actually 50 leads. And that's assuming the 50 leads are all the right persona. Yeah, 50 leads will probably get you 1 to 2 clients. If you were really poor at sales, you'd probably do that. The more you broaden out, the more numbers you need in at the top, and you need thousands in to get 3 clients. That's why I get those pitches. I sometimes screenshot them and put them up. We can send 5,000 LIN mails a month and help you get 3 to 4 clients. It's like, why do you need to do 5,000? Because you're just machine gunning it out there to kind of compensate for the lack of resonance.
So would you say then all they're doing is they're hitting people who are actively in a position going, I need to solve a problem, and they know about it, they can feel it, and then they see someone reach out and they go, I was already thinking about this, so yes, I'll have a look, and the timing everything lines up, which is what? 2% of your whole audience, 3% of the market. Audience.
They say 3% of the market are actively looking for the solution. So in other words, if you go, hey, do you need LinkedIn training? Right? Does your sales team need LinkedIn training? And you just fired that to a whole load of sales leaders. The odds are, if you sent it to say 1,000, the odds are that 3% of those are saying, yeah, I'm looking for sales training for the sales team right now. So that's how that whole theory works. And that's why people do it. So what you're doing is pitching to people at the very end of the buying journey and trying to win some. If you go a bit more further up and go, are you struggling with this challenge? You can actually convert somebody where they haven't decided what they need yet. And then you become the first choice. But most people are thinking, I need somebody who needs coaching. I need somebody who needs executive coaching, which means you're saying, I want somebody who's at the very end of their journey and I want to be the person they choose. But they're automatically going to go for, and there's a bias to either an incumbent, a recommendation, or somebody who they already work with. So going to that 3% is like a very big numbers game, but 37% that's kind of further up the tree, they know they've got a problem, but don't fully understand how to solve it yet. You can show them the solution, and then they trust you more, and you become the first choice. So yes, you know, they might be a little bit of a journey to get them to the point where they're ready to buy, but you become the preferred option, which means it's less hard to sell.
Yeah. And this is the thing. You can, even when you get someone on a call, typically from cold pitching, or you use a tactic.
It's a hell of a sell.
Vague.
It's a hard sell.
Yeah, that's the bit. On that call, it's so much harder. You have to be very good at understanding exactly why they'd want to talk to you. The thing is, what you don't realize is that 3% increases when you start to create exposure, familiarity. People start to become aware of what you do and the value you can provide them. They come to the call with questions. They come to the call in a position already considering that you understand them and that you are going to present an opportunity to them. Whereas when it's just a cold outreach and you manage to just about convince them to take the time, it's so much harder on that call itself.
100%.
So you either do the work here or you do it there. And people don't understand that. They think as long as I get the call, I'll get sales because it's just quantity. It's a much harder sell for someone who hasn't done sales training, who isn't a salesperson, who is just going to use their expertise. And what happens on those sales calls when you don't have the sales training, you're full of your expertise, what happens typically?
You start talking about features, you start talking about what you do, and people go, I'm not sure why I need it.
And I'd argue another thing they do is just teach, right? You'll end up delivering on the coaching you want them to buy.
Yeah. And that's a big thing. Maybe we'll wrap up with this, but if you go into a sales call and you teach, basically what you do is you give people a little quick fix. You give them paracetamol. Use the analogy of the headache. Come back to that. You actually give people a paracetamol. They go away and go, that's really nice. I'll go away and I'll be okay now. And then they'll look for some more paracetamol, more paracetamol, more paracetamol. But actually what you do is go, well, let's diagnose it. Let's diagnose it on the call. And they go, oh my God, I didn't realize that was the real issue. And you've got a different treatment plan for that will actually do it. I want that.
Yeah, and if you're trying to convince someone to either have paracetamol or have brain surgery, the commitment and the choice someone has to go through to commit to brain surgery, it's like it takes a lot more in depth. They want to know more information. They need more of this. They need more of that. So you're absolutely right. I think if you leave people with paracetamol, it's very quick for them to either consider someone else or believe that the whole system doesn't work.
If you teach on a sales call, 100%, you are giving people a short-term pain relief. And the logic is, well, they trust me now because I've given them loads of helpful stuff. Surely they come back to me, but the evidence suggests they don't. And what happens is they go, oh, that Dave is wonderful, really helpful, love it. Oh, somebody else is offering some paracetamol. I'll go and try their paracetamol.
Or they'll offer the surgery, but they'll hold it from you and say, you'll only fix your business if you take this. And then that person either has to commit or walk away and say goodbye to their business. That's the key. And
that's where you end up with that. I'm really talented at what I do. I know I can help these people. Why are they buying from somebody with less expertise? It's because the people who are selling better might not be delivering better, might not be better at doing the results, but actually they're selling better because they understand the customer needs to solve the problem in front of them and they're going to unlock the root cause. Whereas a lot of smart people will teach on the call, educate on the call, and people go away going, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that. I don't need to buy you right now because I've got my paracetamol. I'll get on with it.
Great way to end.
Yeah. So know your customer.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming on, Dave.
Thanks for having me.